Global warming, climate change, greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, all phrases we've been inundated with in our quest to understand what's happening to our climate. But do we really know what it means? Annette Saliken has written a book called The Cocktail Party Guide to Global Warming, everything you need to know to converse intelligently about global warming in any social situation. And Annette joins us now. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Now, we do stories on this almost every single day. This is a big part of our job now, understanding global warming and climate change. I was still confused about it, so I read this book actually with relief, because you do lay it out so simply and clearly, and it makes a lot of sense. So why did you decide to write the book?
Well, thanks for the compliment. The reason I was inspired to write the book was because when I was completing my master's thesis related to global warming and alternative energy, I noticed that when I was in social situations that I was surprised by how much misinformation there was, even though we're inundated with information every day about global warming. And I think it might be because we receive information in sound bites, and so we have trouble connecting the dots. And so I thought, well, maybe I could help people to connect the dots.
People aren't as good at science as other disciplines, for example, so it is hard for us, many of us, to get a grasp around it because we haven't had, you know, science class since grade 11 or 12.
Right, and you know what, I'm not a scientist either. I'm just like you. I'm just a person who's interested in the environment, and I decided to do some research on it. And during my thesis, I spent many hours reading thousands of pages of scientific journals and reports, and summarize them and put them into layman's terms. And that's my area of specialty, is that I translate complex information into everyday language for non-technical readers.
Okay, perfect. So then help us. This is going to be a little lesson for all of us. In your book, you have a great graph, and so we're going to start with that. And so the big umbrella term for all of this, I guess, is climate change.
Right.
Which is not a bad thing. What is climate change?
Well, climate change is actually often you know, used interchangeably with global warming, but they're actually different. Climate change is any kind of change in temperature or pressure or weather.
Okay.
And actually, I'd like to provide a backdrop about climate change. Is that there's an organization called the IPCC.
Right.
IPCC, and they're the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Right.
And it's an organization that was formed in the 1980s by the UN and the World Meteorological Organization, and they consist of thousands of climate experts from around the world.
And this is where you gathered a lot of the data for your book.
Yes, and they won a Nobel Prize last year for their research and reporting, and they wrote 4 reports last year. The latest was in November, and I've summarized those in the book.
Okay, so climate change, one offshoot of climate change, of course, is global warming, and humans are responsible for global warming through greenhouse gases, but there are also lots of natural other processes as well.
That's right. That's right. So there's other processes that are involved, and what the IPCC says is that they've seen measurements of greenhouse gases that have gone up in the last 150 years, and they've also said that global warming is unequivocal, that it's definitely happening, and they've witnessed it happening in the last 150 years. So they believe that the connection is really between
greenhouse
global
gases.
Warming and greenhouse gases, yes.
Okay, so then what is greenhouse gases and how is it caused?
Well, greenhouse gases, there's lots of different types of greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is the dominant human-related greenhouse gas, and it's the one that they're giving most attention to because it hangs in the atmosphere for approximately 100 years, and it's the one that seems to be has the most overabundance in the atmosphere that has been showing up in the last 150 years, which correlates with this time period that they've been witnessing global warming.
The spike in global warming. And then you said, we saw, of course, the last graphic that that carbon dioxide is caused by human activities and also natural sources. And the natural sources is forest fires, for example.
Right. So there's a natural carbon cycle that's been going on for literally ages, and you know, it's caused by decaying trees, burning trees or plants, and volcanic eruptions emit carbon as well. But these are all natural things.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing, you said,
no,
greenhouse gases.
No, exactly, because greenhouse gases actually help to keep a sort of a natural, it keeps the planet warm. And without greenhouse gases, our planet would be unlivable, it'd be so cold. So to have a layer of greenhouse gas is totally natural, and to have carbon emissions and absorption is natural. So what IPCC says is that they've been looking at, well, what's changed in the last 150 years? And they don't see the change coming from the natural carbon cycle, so they're looking for what's happening unnaturally. So that's why they're looking at human activity and what's happened in the last 150 years, and they're pointing to the Industrial Revolution,
right,
which started about the same time. So you start to see this correlation between the Industrial Revolution, the carbon dioxide levels, the greenhouse gas layer, and then this global warming.
And that is what you do so well in your book. And we're out of time, unfortunately, but this does really lay it out for you. The Cocktail Party Guide to Global Warming. That's the website right there, www.cocktailpartyguide to global warming. You also talk about the Kyoto Protocol, the cap and trade system, different phrases that we hear a lot and we don't necessarily know what they are, and you simplify it really well. So thank you for this. It's a good book.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.